The first thing they heard was not her voice but the sound of metal meeting stone, one clean note that cut through shouting the way cold severs fog. The villagers froze with their words still hanging in the air. A boy stood in the middle of the square, thin as a reed, his cap fallen into the mud. Someone had painted fear on him and the crowd had decided to read it aloud. "Get out, boy," a man had yelled, and the others had taken the cue, anger multiplying in familiar ways, feeding on itself the way a small fire learns how to be a big one. Soraka did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply planted the butt of her golden staff against the ground, let the ring of it finish its journey, and waited. Dusk had found the village while they weren't watching. Lantern light spilled out of doorways and crawled across the packed earth. The staff's head, a battered crescent that had seen long roads and little sleep, caught that light and gave it back in a steadier form. Her horn, the long, graceful arc above her brow, was a silhouette against the first stubborn stars. "Who is he?" she asked, looking only at the boy. He didn't answer. His breath came in fast, shallow lifts. There was a tear on one cheek that had cooled and left a pale track. "He's a thief," someone spat. "If he's a thief," Soraka said, "he is a very hungry one." A woman near the front folded her arms. "You don't know this place." "I know the shape of fear," Soraka replied. "It looks similar everywhere." Silence rearranged itself. The villagers took her in. Lavender skin, travel-worn cloak, boots salt-bitten by old roads, the staff that seemed to belong to the ground as much as it did to her hand. She did not have the look of a court or a soldier. She had the look of someone who listens more than she speaks, and who somehow still gets to the middle of things. "Name," she said softly to the boy. "What's your name?" He swallowed. "Tomas," he whispered. "Tomas," she said, as if trying it for weight. "What happened before they shouted?" He glanced toward a cart with a broken axle. A sack lay open nearby. Barley kernels scattered like a field had burst into a handful. "I was hungry," he said, barely audible. "I took a little. Not a sack. Just a handful." Shame fought with need in his voice and lost only by an inch. A man stepped forward, thick shoulders under a fraying coat. "My barley," he said. "My winter counted on that." "I will pay you for what fell," Soraka said, eyes still on Tomas. "You don't even know how much that is." "I know how much a boy can carry in two small hands," she answered. "I will pay for that. And if your winter is so precarious that a handful unravels it, then your village has a larger problem than this boy. Who are you to judge us?" the woman demanded. Soraka looked up at the sky, at the thin edge of night. "I am from the mountain where people watch the stars," she said. "They judge nothing. They only keep time. I sometimes help people keep time with themselves." "That is nothing," the man with the barley said harshly. "Words. Words are like kindling," Soraka said. "They do nothing until someone bends to the fire." She lowered the staff and offered Tomas her free hand. He looked at it as if touching it might make more shouting happen. Then he took it. His fingers were cold through the grime. She turned with him toward the bakery. "We'll begin by warming him," she said to the square at large. "You can decide who you are while we do that." No one moved. Then the baker's wife, who had been staring at Tomas's bare ankles, stepped aside from her doorstep. "Inside," she said sharply to no one in particular, as if annoyed to find herself being kind. "He'll drip on the floor." "I'll fetch a cloth." Soraka nodded thanks. Inside, heat found Tomas like an old friend that has to be reintroduced. He stood stiffly by the oven while the baker's wife laid a towel over his shoulders and muttered about mud and boys, and the way trouble always arrives right before supper. Soraka crouched to be level with his eyes. "How long since you ate?" she asked. He shrugged. "Long enough to forget the days." He nodded once, small. She broke a crust from a cooling loaf. He hesitated. "If I take it, they will say they saw an adult hand it to you," Soraka replied. "And if they do not say that, I will. Eat." He ate the way the starved do. Too fast at first, memory frantic. She placed her palm gently against the back of his hand, not stopping him, just reminding him that the world was there. He slowed. When he finished, she handed him a second piece and looked up as the baker himself came in, wiping flour from his forearms. "You bring trouble," he said to Soraka without rancor, "or trouble follows you." "I bring a chance," she said, for someone besides Tomas to be the bravest person in the square. He snorted despite himself. "You talk like a priest and a doctor had a child." "I talk like I've seen a lot of winters," she said, "and I've watched villages decide who they want to be." The baker leaned against his work table. You want to fix us? I want to fix what's broken right now. If that helps you fix the rest, good. What's broken? He challenged. Soraka looked toward the door, where the square old noise was gathering itself again. Your patience, she said, and maybe your well. Our well, he frowned. It's cold and clean. You can see to the bottom. Show me after this, she said. But first I'll pay the man for Thomas's handful, and I'll ask you for 2 bowls of soup. You pay me with my own soup now? He asked, amused. I pay you with what I have, she said. If I had fewer coins, I would pay with my hands. He nodded, taking the measure of that. Soup then, he said, and ladled broth into 2 chipped bowls, setting them down with the care of someone who wanted to appear careless. When they stepped back into the square, the crowd's edges had sharpened again, as crowds do when they think they might lose their anger before it's had its say. Soraka moved toward the man with the barley. She took a small purse from her cloak, worn leather, the stitching mended too many times, and counted out coins deliberately, not enough to buy a sack, enough to buy what 2 small hands could carry. He took the money with the sullen dignity of a poor man trying not to act like one. Won't make me whole, he said. It will make Tomas honest for the part he admits, she said. The rest is for your neighbors to decide. Our neighbors? He scoffed. We look after our own. Then look after him, Soraka said, still calm. He is in your square. That makes him yours as much as the stump in the well. Murmurs. Good and bad. She set 1 bowl of soup into Thomas's hands, kept the other for herself, but did not drink it. Now, she said, glancing at the circle of faces. Who here wants to speak for sending a hungry child into the dark? Silence. The question had too many consequences. People shifted. A dog sneezed. The lantern nearest the well guttered and caught again. A man with a trimmed beard and a heavy coat stepped forward. Authority clung to him. Maybe earned, maybe just long held. We have rules, he said. Strangers ask before they take. If they've no one to ask for them, they ask louder. What if they have learned that asking makes people look away? Soraka asked. He met her eyes. And if we say yes to this boy, 10 more will come and we'll have nothing. Is your village so weak? She asked softly, that a yes breaks it? He opened his mouth and then closed it, not because he had been beaten, but because the shape of the talk had turned unfamiliar. I am Duran, he said finally. Headman, until spring. Then in spring you will be a man again, Soraka said gently. And perhaps you will enjoy it. Some laughter, careful. Duran let it pass. What do you propose? He asked. 3 things, Soraka said. First, Tomas eats tonight. No debate. Second, he earns tomorrow. Work suited to hands and age. Sweeping your square, carrying water, fetching wood for those who cannot. Not as a penance, but as a way to belong. Third, you let me see your well. Our well again, the baker muttered. Your children cough, Soraka said without drama, a diagnosis delivered as if she were naming a color. I heard it when we stood in your doorway. Dry cough that doesn't know when to stop. If your grain has been short, you've watered your soups more. If your well is souring, your winter will get longer by measurably cruel inches. Duran's jaw tightened. And you'll fix it by looking at it? I'll fix what I can by knowing what it is, she said. If it's only a stuck cover, a broken plank, we lift it. If it's sediment, we dig out the silt. If it's runoff fouling the mouth, we run a trench. If it's something time needs to mend, I will show you how to boil water without boiling the wood you need for heat. Knowledge is cheaper than barley if you share it. The woman who'd spoken first folded her arms tighter, but her eyes had shifted, from suspicion to interest, the first sliver of hope sneaking in disguised as curiosity. And if we say no, then you will have a hungry boy and a sick winter, Soraka said. And I will still sleep under your stars, listening to the same cough you will. Duran looked at Tomas, whose small hands curled around the bowl as if it were a planet he was trying not to drop. He blew out a breath that left his mouth like steam and reluctance. Eat, he said roughly to Tomas. Then you'll sweep in the morning. Tomas nodded fast as if the agreement might change if he moved slowly. And the well, Duran added to Soraka. You can look. Tonight, since you like dark so much. I like answers, Soraka said. Dark is good at holding them still. They went as a group, because villages do everything as a group when tension is a shared animal. The well sat a little downhill from the square, ringed by stones that had seen 2 lifetimes of feet. The cover was old, but not broken. Soraka knelt, set aside the bowl she'd never drunk from, and lifted the plank with the care of someone handling a memory. The smell reached her first. Not foul, tired, water that had been asked to do too much for too long. "Lantern," she said softly. Someone handed one down. She peered in. A film like tea scum rode the top, subtle and treacherous. "Who else draws water from here?" she asked without looking up. "Animals? Do you rinse hides nearby? Dump wash water?" "Not here," Joran said. "Upstream, behind Kaja's house, there's a runoff when it rains. We pushed the ditch last year but didn't go far. Then you will finish the job," Soraka said. "Tomorrow. Lay rock in the trench this time to stop the collapse." The baker's wife glanced at Joran and then at Soraka. "And tonight? Boil," Soraka said. "Half your village will scold me for telling them the obvious. The other half will thank me for reminding them to do it. Reminders keep children alive." She stood, brushed frost from her knees with her palm, and tapped the staff against the stones once. Less a command than a measure of what needed doing. "I will sleep near the square," she said. "If a cough keeps you up, send for me. I know ways to persuade lungs. They aren't miracles, just stubbornness in the right shape." "Who are you really?" the woman asked. Not accusation this time. Wanting. "I've been called many things," Soraka said. "Midwife, wanderer, fool, celestial. The last one is pretty and not useful. Use the others." They broke apart slowly, as if the cold had glued them together, and they had to be careful not to leave pieces behind. Tomas finished the second bowl and looked as if he didn't believe it had happened. Soraka walked with him to the edge of the square where the wind couldn't find him so easily. "You'll sleep with the others?" she asked, nodding toward the communal house where travelers curled up on straw when winter made pride too expensive. "I don't sleep much," he said. "You will tonight," she replied, and there was no magic in it. Only the confidence of someone who understood that a warm belly could argue with fear, and sometimes win. He shifted, looked down at his cap on the ground, picked it up. "Why did you stop them?" he asked finally. "You don't know me." "Someone stopped for me once," Soraka said. It seemed sensible to keep the chain unbroken. He frowned at that, too young for metaphors when his life had been only literal. "You have a horn," he said, like a fact he had saved for later. "I do," she said, touching it absent-mindedly, as if to confirm it was still there. "It's good for finding low doorways." He smiled without meaning to, a small confession of childhood. "You look like a story." "I look like someone who will make you work in the morning," she said, and his smile widened despite himself. Night took the village with the soft efficiency of a practiced thief. Soraka settled near the square, her cloak around her like an old friend, staff across her knees. She cleaned the staff's end with a cloth, the way a blacksmith oils his tools, not because they look pretty, but because they last longer that way. When the first cough came, she was already moving. The cough belonged to a girl with a braid too tight for her sleepy head. Her mother hovered, making the air frantic. Soraka washed her hands, warmed them over the mother's stove, and placed them under the girl's ribs, feeling the mechanics of breath. "Steam," she said, and the mother fetched a pot, boiled water, dripped it over a bowl of herbs that smelled like pine had decided to help. Soraka held the bowl where the girl could breathe, counted in a voice that made numbers into a path. In time, the cough remembered how to be smaller. The mother's eyes wet themselves without asking permission. "What do I owe?" she asked, as if relief required a receipt. "2 cups of water," Soraka said. "One for me, one for Tomas. When you sleep, sleep on an extra blanket. Fear leaves cold behind." The mother nodded, bewildered by the exchange rate and still relieved enough to accept it. The night became a rhythm, a knock, a kettle, the sound of relief filling small rooms. Soraka did not promise cures. She offered adjustments. A pillow lifted here to change the angle of breath, a poultice there to pull stubborn heat from a joint. She left instructions written in ugly, efficient handwriting on scraps of paper. Boil, air the bedding, heat, then rest. Walk at noon if there is sun. When the east paled, she found Joran already outside, breath fogging, worry drawn in tidy lines at the corners of his day. He looked like a man who had not slept because leadership sometimes means carrying everyone else's wakefulness. "You moved quiet," he said. "I've had practice," she said. "You'll need half the village to cut that trench. The ground will fight you. It always does." He nodded, then hesitated. "My son," he said, as if admitting he owned something fragile. "The cough comes like waves. He swallows to hide it. Children teach themselves to be brave where it hurts," Soraka said. "Bring him to me this afternoon. We'll teach him a different kind." He studied her. "You speak like you've been a mother." "I've been a lot of things," she said. Mother is a shape the heart can choose even without the rest. The morning work began. Soraka set Tomas to sweeping the square, then showed him how to do it so dust moved away from doorways instead of toward them. "It's only sweeping," he muttered after an hour, sore in small places. "It's only the way people decide if they want to see you tomorrow," she said, and he stopped muttering. At the well, men and women dug and swore in equal measure. Soraka showed them how to set stones, how to angle the trench so rain remembered where to go. She didn't take the shovel from their hands. She modeled a motion, stepped back, nodded when the line of the ditch ran true. "Good," she said when it was good. Again, when it wasn't. She watched their pride adjust itself into a stronger form. By noon, the square was a map of small victories. A line of buckets near a steaming cauldron, boiling water for infants and elders first. A wheelbarrow full of silt dredged from the well's lip. A boy sweeping as if the world depended on where dust chose to settle. It didn't, but the world depended on him believing that it might. Joran brought his son just after sundown, a shy boy with eyes that pretended they didn't notice anything. Soraka took him to the bakery's warmest corner and taught him how to breathe around the cough, how to sip in rhythm with a whispered count. She showed him a game with the steam, how to make a dragon not by force but by cleverness. His chest loosened by degrees. Joran watched, the relief so slow he almost didn't notice it until it had already happened. "What do I owe?" he asked, almost bitter with gratitude. "Stand for Tomas if someone forgets who they decided to be," she said. "That will be enough." That night, a storm came, the kind that reshapes schedules and priorities without asking permission. Snow fell with intent. Roofs groaned. The trench, freshly cut, held until it didn't. Water found an old habit and rushed down a path it liked better, slicing along the back of the houses, lifting a stack of firewood, nosing at a door. A shout. Two. The square became busy with the good kind of noise. Soraka moved faster than her age should have allowed. "Sandbags," she said, pointing. "If you don't have them, sew grain into sacks you can spare and curse me later when you untie them. Move beds to higher rooms, you," she pointed to Tomas. "With me." They slogged to the house, catching the first of the water. Inside, a child cried. Outside, the ditch gave a small, treacherous laugh. Soraka put her shoulder against the door and did not win, but she did not yield either. "Hold it," she told Tomas. "I'm counting on you." She took her staff, turned it horizontal and slid it across the bottom of the door to brace it between the jambs. The old wood complained. The staff did not. "Buckets," she called, and a line formed because sometimes people only need someone to tell them where to stand. For an hour that belonged to a different kind of time, they bailed and braced and listened to the storm talk in old familiar voices. When the wind shifted and the pressure changed, the small sign storms give when they're ready to be less. Soraka eased the staff back, checked the door, nodded. "Good," she said, and the word passed from mouth to mouth, shrinking, then growing again as it found new people to reassure. After, wet and tired, they gathered in the square, steam rising off coats as if the village itself were exhaling. Joran looked at Soraka the way men look at someone they owe more to than they can name. "We would have lost that house," he said, trying to keep his voice from being a confession. "You would have lost the ground under it," Soraka said. "Houses remember how to stand if you ask them right." He laughed, startled by the image, and something in him unclenched. He looked around at his people, mud on their knees, satisfaction on their faces, a boy standing among them as if he had been there the whole time. "Tomorrow," he said, "we finish the trench. Proper." "Tomorrow," Soraka agreed. She tapped the staff once against the square, less ceremony than punctuation. They slept, some because they earned it, some because they had no choice. Dawn found them sore and functional. Work began before talk, which is how you can tell the talk has changed. By afternoon, the trench had a stone spine and a mind of its own that agreed with theirs. The well cleared by inches. Water drawn into a clear bucket looked like the truth instead of a tired lie. Tomas brought Soraka a bowl of soup without being asked. "I didn't sweep yet," he said, apologetic, "but I helped with the stones." "Stones matter," she said. "Sweeping can forgive you." He looked at her staff where it leaned against the table. "When you hit the ground with it," he said slowly, "how did it make them quiet?" "It didn't," she said. "They made themselves quiet. They just needed a sound to gather around. Like a bell, she said, "or a story that is ready to begin." He chewed that idea along with his bread. "Will you stay?" I don't stay, she said. I visit. It keeps me honest. Where do you go? Where the shouting is louder than the listening, she said. Where the work of becoming kinder needs a midwife. He accepted that with a kid's clean logic. Joran said I can carry wood for the old ones, he added, casual in the tone that means not casual at all. Then do it well, Soraka said. Not to repay anything, to root yourself. That evening they gathered in the square by choice, not crisis. Lanterns swung. Bread stretched a little farther than it should have and did not complain. The old man who spoke rarely spoke now. The woman who guarded her grudges found her hands busy with mending instead. Soraka stood near the well, a quiet in the center of things. Joran stepped up beside her. You were right about the well, he said. You were right about the rules, she said. They keep people from cutting themselves on the world. They also keep them from touching it. Both are needed, not always on the same day. He glanced at Tomas, who was showing a smaller child how to seat a rock without pinching fingers. The boy will stay, he said, making it official without ceremony. He works. He eats. Not because we're soft, because we're not. Soraka smiled. When stars judge, she said, almost to herself, they do it by how we hold the small and the cold. Joran squinted at the sky. I don't see judgment, only light. That's what judgment should be, she said. Light that helps you see what you're already doing. He nodded, satisfied to be the kind of man who could agree with a thought like that when no one was watching. What do we owe you? He asked. Truly. Send me away with a clean cup, she said. A path kept open through the drift. A promise you'll boil water when it needs boiling and anger when it needs boiling off. That last one's harder, he admitted. That's why we practice, she said. She left at first light, before the village could make a ceremony out of it and feel foolish afterward. Tomas woke early and found her by the road, fastening her cloak. You forgot your soup bowl, he said, holding it up like a treasure. I didn't forget, she said. It's yours now. Payment for the sweepings you haven't done yet. He nodded solemnly, understanding the trick. When will you come back? When you don't need me, she said. Which is to say, some spring. He looked down the road, which went where roads always go, toward a place, then another, then the next. Thank you, he said, so quietly he almost didn't say it. Eat when you can, she replied. Rest when you should. Stand when you must. He smiled. Like a staff. Better, she said. Like a person. She set the staff's end on the ground one last time. The sound wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. The village lifted its head as if hearing something just at the edge of sense. An appointment with itself. Kept. Then she walked, the horn catching a streak of early sun, the staff catching the rest. The square swallowed her absence and kept going. Joran argued amiably with the baker about the trench's angle. The women who had crossed their arms now crossed the square with bread. Children made a game of hauling stones. When people later told the story, they got the details wrong the way people always do. They said Soraka knocked on the earth and the earth obeyed. They said she healed with a touch. They said the well cleared in a night because her staff shone like a star, and the water remembered how to be water. But the ones who had been there remembered different. They remembered the sound of the staff as punctuation, not command. They remembered the taste of boiled water and how it felt to breathe easier in the night. They remembered Tomas standing in a line of adults bracing a door and not asking if he belonged. They remembered work, steady, shared, prosaic, and how it made fear smaller. When stars judge, the village learned, they do it without a voice. They shine. And if you're paying attention, you hold yourself up to that light and decide. They did. Not perfectly, not once and for all, but often enough that the square began to tell on them. Its stones cleaner, its well clearer, its shouting quieter. Some evenings, when the wind came down friendly from the ridges and children ran without pretending not to, someone would tap a broom handle against the ground. 2 quick thunks and the square would hush, smiling. Like that, they'd whisper, like when she made us listen. And just beyond the next hill, or the next, Soraka would be walking again, following the places where listening had gone thin, where a staff against the ground might remember a village to itself, where a boy or a mother or a stubborn headman needed the kind of healing that looks from a distance like ordinary work done on time.